Happy Victober. This is going to be a spoiler. It's a book report on an Anthony Trollope book that was so funny. It's called Christmas at Thompson Hall. I did read it on the Gutenberg Project. And it was so refreshing to laugh so hard, even though, this lady's awkward moment was not funny. Somebody got hurt. But because I am also an herbalist, and we just read you the very last line of the book, okay, and then let's get started. The last line was, Mr. Jones was happy and had been brought to acknowledge that the mustard plaster would probably not do him any permanent injury. So thank God for that, right? But there was an injury from mustard, and I use mustard, so I know how powerful that herb is. That even make mustard gas out of that, it'll kill you. It is very powerful herb. I think the Bible even says it's the greatest herb. So this is what happened, okay? Now, this book is so exciting, okay? Because first of all, they don't want to tell you what year it is, but it's 187 so somewhere 1870 something. They didn't even want to tell you their real names, okay? So we're calling them Mr. and Mrs. Brown, and they didn't want to tell you the year or their names because they didn't want you to look into this matter, okay? But this is taking place in the French capital of Paris. It was Christmas time, a very bad winter. They said Paris likes to be about prettiness and gaiety and liveliness, while London's all about money, commerce, and business. Anyway, at the beginning of the book, a couple arrives at a big giant hotel. This is Christmas time, 1870 something. They concealed their names, so they're going by Mr. and Mrs. Brown. They live together like they were married. Mrs. Brown is wealthy. This guy married her. He did stop working, and he was sick, and it is Christmas time, and her sister was trying to introduce her to a new beau and getting them to travel. This guy was sick. He didn't really want to go. He thought this journey was going to kill him, but they went. And as they were heading, there was a bad storm, so they end up at this hotel. He was sick. He had bronchitis. He wanted to go home. The weather was cruel. The hotel was chilly. But the next day, they were heading by train to Stratford, okay? And he didn't even think he was going to make it if he didn't get better that night. And he wanted some kind of a poultice for his throat. He had a bronchitis, sore throat on his chest. He went to bed, and he put some flannel on his throat. She could barely even hear him. But he did send her down into the hotel to try to find some mustard that he thought he saw down there on the way up. And so she tucked him in, and she went down the corridor and down the steps and down another corridor and down more steps and down another corridor and more steps until she got to some private sitting rooms. And she went back, tried to make her way back again, start all over. Went back down. She saw a porter in white with a large bust like Juno. She asked for directions. She did get down to the kitchen. There was a man in the kitchen, but the man helped her get back to her room. She still didn't get the mustard. And so she counted the steps and traced her path back to the room. Room number was 333. But then as soon as he, dropped her off, she turned right back around and went back down because she needed this mustard. But now it's dark and creepy, so it was a nice, typical Victorian setup, walking around this giant hotel with a candle, looking for this stuff. She found it. She said it smelled a little sour to her, but it was a different brand than what she normally used. She's walking around this creepy hotel. It was dark. She gets back to the room. He was sleeping. She was gone about an hour. She said the snoring didn't sound like a sick person, and she was mad, She was mad that, he was sleeping good. She was tired too, and she's out walking around this hotel all night. And she said she was a British matron, and that sounded like a little bit of a nurse, because she said that if she was at home, she would have had a delicate linen bag to put this mustard on from making a mess, but she didn't have any of that. So she had a handkerchief. She put it on his throat. The guy was snoring. She didn't wake him up. Pulled the beard, pulled his beard back down, and saw by the candlelight that, it was the wrong man. She's in the wrong room, and, she was struck with horror because it's Christmas Eve. Like, he'd probably been drinking a little bit. Maybe he's passed out. He did not wake up. She knew that mustard was going to burn if you leave it on more than 15 minutes. She didn't know what to do. She didn't know if he wakes up, what am I going to say? She was going to say, don't move, don't scream. I put a mustard plaster on your chest thinking you were my husband. But she didn't know if he was going to wake up. So he didn't wake up. She was going to go tell the porter what she did and let him handle it. She stepped out of the room trying to figure out how she even got in there and who this guy was. Turns out she's in room 353 instead of 333. She's in the hall. Her husband still needs the wrap, so she was looking for the porter. Everything was dark and deserted. It was cold. It's Christmas Eve. She was sad about this whole mess. She was like, none of these men are going to die. Fuck it. I'm just going to go to bed myself. Nobody ever died from a mustard plaster. So she had this hotel path down now, hoping that her man was asleep. She went in the room, the right room. He was not asleep. He was sitting by the fireplace, which was just a spark. He's still sick and groaning. She said, why are you not in bed? I tucked you in. He said, why are you out of bed? He said, where were you? She got him back in bed, and she just told him a bullshit story about where she was for the last hour. And was like, look, dead or alive, you're getting on this train with me to see my sister tomorrow. We got to go meet this new dude. So he was just a little mad that there was no mustard. And she said that there wasn't any. That's what took so long. She was looking. And she's like, just please go to sleep. He's like, that's impossible. She's like, we have got to get some sleep. We're going to go tomorrow. And he was adamant he was going to die. They were cold. She was just fibbing about her whole night. And she was thinking, she's like, oh my God, everybody needs an apology from her because because she's lying to her husband, okay, and then lying to the man for stealing the mustard, and then lying, hurting that other guy. So she could not sleep. She started packing for the next day's trip. She sat on the red velvet sofa when the husband starts complaining that his throat is sore. So she laid down with him for a little bit. He did get some sleep. She couldn't, because she knew that this other guy was going to wake up in pain with a big burn, because the mustard, it will burn you, like, really. Okay, so anyway, it was Christmas night. It's already been hours this plaster's been on this stranger. She was wondering, what was going to happen when he woke up, and so she was afraid that he would, see her, or that he saw her, so she covered her face and went down to the lobby. She was feeling some sort of way, was scared to even look at the porter in case anybody saw her leaving the strange man's room in the middle of the night. She was prepared to defend herself in case the napkin, the handkerchief, was a monogram personal handkerchief she left in the guy's room. So she was freaking out. She just wanted to get to the family party. She was adamant that she did not commit any crime, despite there was a victim and a man with burns and evidence that she left. She felt that everybody was staring at her, and they were. I guess the porter came flashing the handkerchief and looking for the owner of the handkerchief, and the husband was like, why were you in this guy's room? And the porter was like, yeah, why were you in this guy's room? And she said it was a mistake. She got lost in the hall. They did not call the police, but the man was very upset and delayed them from leaving. And she was afraid they were going to miss the train. The man's name was Mr. Jones. And turns out they were going to be on the same train, but he couldn't even dress himself because the burn was so bad. The husband was sick. She was like, and he was like, what did you do to that guy? And then he realized that she was fibbing all night long. He realized that she did go try to get him the mustard that he wanted. He wasn't mad, and they kissed. And she said, he's not going to die because of that mustard burn. Mr. Jones, the burn victim, came down with the napkin. He was stiff. She said it was an accident, He said, "You interfered with my privacy and my comfort." The hubby spoke up and said, "Look, she thought it was me." He said, and the guy, Mr. Jones, the burn guy, said, "Look, I'm about to have a wife myself," but he still didn't think any of this was an accident. He said, "I wish she would have brought it back down to you, buddy." And he's like, "Yeah, me too." Anyway, the extent of the injury was not known, but the guy was upset. He was hurt. He thought it was a practical joke, not a mistake. They said, "No, it was not a violent joke. It was an accident." They're like, "Why didn't you wake me?" And nobody really knew the answer. Nothing could be done. Now it was too late. They both sent telegrams about the delay to where they were going. They missed the train. They got on an omnibus. She did sit far away from her victim. Her face was still veiled. Mr. Jones was wondering if he was the only one in the world that this has ever happened to, realizing his vulnerability because she could have killed him. She could have used chloroform. You know, he wondered what she even looked like because he never really even saw her. He was sleeping or she was veiled. So anyway, they arrived at Stratford. She freed herself from the presence of this handsome and hostile victim of hers. And they were going to go get on the carriage and head to Thompson Hall. Turns out dude was heading that way too. His name was Charles Barnaby Jones, and he was still hurting from the burn, and the moment is still unpleasant. And that the victim was still thinking that she did it on purpose because he was going to meet a girl. You know, this absurd condition just stuck in everybody's memory. It was like a nightmare. He tried to forget about this long day in Paris, and now this assailant is still there with him. I guess this turns out they get to the house. And he looked at Mrs. Brown. He's like, "What do I say?" Jane was the sister. She started putting things together because she got 2 telegrams that both her sister and her boyfriend were delayed. So she was thinking something was up. She ran to hug her boyfriend, and of course, you know, she did, and that kind of hurt him because he was burned up. And then Mr. Jones's personal comfort, you know, he was suffering, so they spoke of it, and the sisters, you know, laughed it off. And Jane was like, "Well, I hope we could all love each other like family." Cousins. The cousins were there. So it was family Christmas dinner. They were members of Parliament, and they had Christmas dinner, which was a sirloin of beef, turkey, mince pies, and plum pudding. And Mrs. Brown told her sister Jane the truth. She said it was a stupid mistake, but it happened. She said she knew she was wrong. She begged for forgiveness, and he did forgive her, and she swore lifelong sisterly devotion for the inconvenience.